Wow, everyone. Good morning. Can you believe it is August 10th already? The summer is flying by. And what has been on my mind this morning and the last couple of days has really been this idea of transitions. We are ready to transition back to school again. I can't believe my high schooler starts on Friday of this week already, and I'm sending my firstborn off to college in a couple of weeks. And so transitions, of course, are on my mind, but I'm also finding that it is on a lot of leadership minds as well. We have been in a strange place, we all know, for many, many months now. And this particular transition is just as bumpy, if not bumpier, than where we were before. The hard transition of everything shutting down was a big blow, obviously. And now that things are they opening up? Are they not opening up? It's sort of a two-step forward, one step back, particularly, of course, now with the new Delta variant with COVID and the masks. Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? All of those things and the rules changing really just about every day, right? And this I find is causing people anxiety, particularly back in the workforce. And ironically, I think sometimes we only think about transitions in business when it comes to transitioning to a new role or leaving a company and transitioning to another one or moving to a different department and things like that. And those times are often given support. Maybe there's a mentorship program or there's a leadership and development uh, online course or something for new management. But these day to day transitions, I think, are sometimes lost. And we can do a lot with our physical presence to help our brain make those transitions. That's transitions from meetings to meetings. It's transitions from talking to one team to talking to a different team, or maybe talking to subordinates or those that report to you, and then talking to the folks that you report to, right? All the different levels that we have in our businesses, it's always a transition. And I think we need to spend a little bit more conscious thought when it comes to these transitions in order to lessen some of our own work stress and anxiety. There's a lot of stress associated with going from meeting to meeting to meeting and those quick transitions. And so what can we do? Yes, we say give yourself time in between meetings, but you may not have that luxury because you didn't schedule it. And when that meeting starts, you're expected to be there. The new meeting leader doesn't know that your last meeting just ended or you had to leave it early in order to jump on to the next Zoom or Teams meeting or whatever it is. And how do we do that then? How do we transition for ourselves? And this is where body language can really come in handy. I want you to think back to summer camp. Okay. Summer camp, if you remember, was full of lots of different kinds of transitions. You were transitioning to a new space, a cabin, a tent, perhaps, or it was a new group of kids. When I went to camp, I didn't know anybody. I didn't go with any friends, and it was an 8-week long camp for the first time. I wrote letters crying to my parents every week to come take me home. They kept visiting me in order to try to get me through. And I survived that 8 weeks, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest you send your child away for 2 months for the very first time. That that might have been not the best. However, all of those transitions certainly made me stronger. And I did a lot of growing up that summer because of needing that self-reliance. And I want you to think back to like all of those transitions and what the camp counselors did during camp to help that become an easier transition. Oh, we have a comment and a nice to see you this morning. She says it's so true. Making time and sticking to it is so important. Definitely make time for yourself to transition between your meetings. And if you can't, we're going to give you some strategies today for doing that. So thanks, Anna. So glad to see you here. If you don't know Anna, you should look her up. She helps folks with their podcasts, and she is a font of information when it comes to setting up and running a podcast. And we know there are many of you out there that are thinking about doing that. Should I do a podcast? Should I do it? You want to reach out to Anna through LinkedIn here and get on her schedule. And she is very ready to hear all of your podcasts too. Great. So back to camp for a second here. One of the first things that any camp that I ever led myself or that I was ever participating in, right, there's all those, like, the icebreaker games. And I know you're rolling your eyes right now because you're like, ugh, you're going to tell us to do team building. Yes, I am. I'm telling you to think about team building, even if you are in Teams and in Zoom, because it's those connections that people are really craving. They've gotten used to being alone, but and especially when we kind of dangle the idea of, oh, you get to come back into the office, or you get to come back into the office a couple of days a week and get to see people again and have interactions. And then, oh, nope, we're going to take that away from you again. And we're not going to meet because of the Delta variant, right? So if you have the luxury of getting your teams together, I definitely encourage you to go out and go do something as a group. And I think I think it should, at this point, it should be physical. It should be fun. I encourage rock climbing or those zip line courses, anything that takes you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And again, those things are transitions. Do you see where I'm going with this? When you're climbing on the rock wall, you have to figure out how you're going to transition to the next rock. If you are doing a zip line course, you have to walk on those little ropes, and those things terrify me, honestly. I tell you, I'm the one that likes to be on the ground with those things. But if you happen to like that high adventure kind of thing, and your group does too, support one another, right? Hold their hand as they're transitioning on that single rope ladder, and then have fun when you're zipping. I don't mind the zip line part. It's all the walking around on the wiggly bridges that I don't like. And so think about that. How are you transitioning? And how are you helping each other transition? Because that group experience, then that group physiological experience that you've all had in your bodies, will bring you closer together. Now, what if you don't go bowling or whirly ball or go play volleyball all together or something? What if you don't do that kind of team building? What other things can you do? I encourage lots of Zoom and team games as well. There are some fun things where you could try to get everybody to connect through your screen. Have you ever tried this yet with your team? For one, it makes everybody realize how you're not in the same position on their screen as they are on your screen. But if you get everybody to hold hands, you ever tried this through the screen? So you reach off your screen and you try to connect with the person next to you and the person above you or below you, and you call out different positions. It's kind of like Twister for Zoom. And it can be pretty hilarious, and it doesn't take that long. But again, it's that having that reach out, that connection, even if it's through the screen, can be fun. And if you don't do that with your teams, I would encourage you to figure out what works for you personally when it comes to transitioning. Think about what type of a transition it is. Is it a transition from meeting to meeting and you need to center in between? Is it a transition where you are taking on a new role and it feels like a bigger leap for you? Is it a transition that you feel like you need to be very careful with and perhaps even cautious with how you are making this transition because of the times that we're in or the subject matter that is around this transition or this meeting that you're going into? Do you see where I'm going with this? I use the word, I think I did anyway. Is it a leap? Is it something you have to be cautious with? This will help you with your body language and what you need to do before the meeting. I encourage you to stand up and literally kind of leapfrog or take little jumps around the space, if it's a leap kind of thing. Because you need to get your brain, your body and your brain communicate. When you leap with your body, your mind also has to leap with it, right? It has to send the signals to your feet to take a large step or to hop or to jump. And that jump is preparing your mind. Believe it or not, folks, it's preparing your mind to make that next leap, that next transition. If it's something that you have to be very cautious with, perhaps you tiptoe across on your bio break. You tiptoe to the bathroom and you tiptoe back because you want to be cautious, or you try to be very quiet while you are making this transition. Anything that you can do to prepare yourself physically and mentally for what you're about to do. Visioning is also very, very good for this. You can take a moment to close your eyes and envision yourself taking that leap, or envision yourself walking across a tightrope if you feel like it's a very tenuous thing that you're about to do, and have that success. We just finished the Olympics, and I know that you've probably seen those stories where it's a lot of vision work that these athletes do with specialized sports coaches in order to visualize themselves winning. Is part of their preparation. Visualize themselves crossing the finish line, visualizing themselves looking at the time and seeing their best time ever. Those things are true. It really does help. And even if you don't, so if you for some reason don't like to get up and move around, at least go into your brain and move around in there and visualize how you want things to turn out. Because what you may also find is, as you're visualizing that, your body will probably have small impulses. It won't be you leaping across the room, but you will probably have a little forward motion as you're visualizing it. Or as you're sitting there, you may even sway a little bit as you are thinking through these movement things, because your body is going to react to that. It's going to have an empathetic and kinesthetic response. And that's what you want to happen, because that means that your mind is preparing and your body is preparing. Particularly if you don't have time in between those meetings that we first talked about, because you were scheduled back to back and the first one didn't end early and you didn't leave early. I would encourage you, at the very least, because you do have 2 or 3 seconds between clicking off of one meeting and entering the next and being admitted. Take that time to close your eyes so that you disconnect. Take a nice deep breath in and let it out. I would go even further to shake off the meeting before, physically shake it off, wiggle your legs. Even if you stand for that shakedown and then sit, it will physically help you make that transition in a faster and easier way. You really do have to signal to your brain that you're getting rid of the gunk from the meeting that you just left, and you are blank slate, open to receive in the meeting that you're going into, especially if you are leading this meeting. If you're not leading the meeting and you're there, put that smile on your face and wiggle your feet. They can't see you. Right now, I am wiggling my legs and my toes right now, letting my legs get some movement in order to, sometimes it helps you stay awake, but it also gives that little burst of energy to keep you alive and to keep your body engaged in the next meeting. Because I know there are many of you that go from meeting to meeting to meeting. There are lots of sales representatives that I work with, and unfortunately, that's kind of the way your day is scheduled. There's a meeting, and then there's another meeting, and then there's another meeting with potential customers and clients. And you have to be able to be fresh and transition to this new person. If you're still hanging on to the other meeting and thinking about what you're going to do with the last person, you're not going to be present, and they're, of course, not going to respond to you, because engagement is the key. Okay, everybody, let's do a little bit of review here. For transitioning, I want you to think about going back to camp and all those lovely trust exercises that you used to do. You remember those ones where you stood in a circle, shoulder to shoulder, and just closed your eyes and felt the sway of the circle? Or one person was in the middle and they had to release themselves and you had to catch them and keep them standing as the circle was there. Those sorts of things, those are great too. All of those things that you used to do as a child and had more bravery around them, perhaps. Think about bringing some of those into your day-to-day in whatever way you can, whether it's visualizing, whether it's physical, whether it's through the Zoom screen. Maybe you need to have a cocktail hour where you just swap stories about those exercises and get everybody, oh, I totally remember doing that. Oh yeah, did you do the one where? And you'll find there's some camaraderie that some of you have had more of the similar experiences than maybe you thought, because a lot of those campfire games are very similar throughout the country. Okay, everybody, have a great week. Concentrate on your transitions a little bit. Ease your anxiety about what it is that we're going through. And don't only think about big transitions. Think about the small ones too. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you next Tuesday. Take care, everyone.